Hey, this is Kristin Smedley and Mary Fran Bontempo of Brilliantly Resilient.
And you are listening to Awaken Nation with Brad Szollose.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Szollose, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Hi, Brad.
Hey, welcome to the show. We have a mutual friend, Lisa Gage, who I've known for so many years. We're not gonna say a polite gentleman does not say how long they've known a lady. But we had to get you on the show because you two have an extraordinary story, and you happen to team up. You both have done TED Talks. This is amazing to me. And also, you formed something. This is the best name ever. Brilliantly Resilient. So I love this. Let's get started. I'm going to read your bios real quick. This is great. Mary Fran Bontempo and Kristin Smedley know their brilliance, but they didn't always. Both Kristin and Mary Fran know what it feels like to be sucker punched by life. Don't we all? But they refuse to let those sucker punches define them. Together, they created Brilliantly Resilient, a show, podcast, program, and now a book to teach others how to reset, rise, and reveal their brilliance to the world. Please welcome to the show, Mary Fran and Kristin. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Much.
We're excited to be here.
Thanks
Good,
for
good.
Awaken Nation.
So, who wants to go first? Who wants to tell their tale? Because it's extraordinary. Anybody who can talk about resilience has obviously been through something. Let's put it that way. So, Mary Fran, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I always describe myself as Marsha Brady growing up. Your viewers of a certain age will understand exactly what that means. That the little rule follower and the kid who did everything right. At least I thought so. And I grew up in this Catholic house in home in Northeast Philadelphia, and went to Catholic school for even all through college. So I was a rule follower, and I believed that, if you did the right thing, everything would work out. And it did until it didn't. So really what happened in a nutshell, my husband and I raised a family, 3 kids. We thought we were kind of getting to the end of that, where you hopefully send them out into the world and they get off your payroll, as he says.
Yeah.
But my son was struggling. He's the oldest of my 3. And on Mother's Day of 2010, we found out that he was a heroin addict.
Wow.
It was not a surprise in the sense that as I said, we knew he was struggling. We knew he had alcohol issues. We knew some things were up, but I always say the 2 best companions of crisis are distraction and denial. You go through these really intense periods, and then when things calm down a little bit, you think okay, all right, we're on the upswing. Things are going to get okay. So it wasn't until he overdosed on a pain medication that he took, because he couldn't get his hands on heroin that day, that we were hit with this diagnosis. And in fact, when we got him to the hospital, the doctors told us that if they could not reverse the effects of this pain medication that he took, he would need a liver transplant if he lived. So again, we had been struggling with him for a long time, but this was the first time that there was a name, and a name so devastating to, anything that you think you might be able to handle.
Right.
That there was a name attached to it. So that was the beginning of our struggle. And I'll let Kristin tell her part of her struggle. And then I guess we can tell how we came together in all this.
I'd love that. But that's, whoa. A lot of people don't realize, and you mentioned Marsha Brady, we are of a certain age where we grew up where those sitcoms and those TV shows were all about perfection, and the parent had it all figured out. And then to find out your son is a heroin addict, there were probably absolutely no signs that would make you think, oh, maybe he is. And all of a sudden, Am I right on that, or
Well,
were there signs?
Well, he had been struggling. We knew he was struggling with drinking. And then there was an incident where he took and admitted to us that he had taken some kind, he had a fight at college and with friends of his. And
Right.
my husband, we got called from the security from the college. We took him to the hospital, and they wanted him to do a urine test. So he was in this room for a really long time. And finally the aides knocked on the door and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm trying to figure out a way to pee in this cup without peeing in this cup." So we knew
Wow.
that he had taken something at that time. But this is one of those things that it's so hard to grasp as a parent, because your kid's making a choice to do something that you've told them their entire lives. You don't do this stuff. It's terrible. It can kill you. It can hurt you. So it's very, very hard to wrap your head around your kid doing something that extreme. We all know kids try stuff, but that crossed a line that we were not prepared to handle.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah. Yes.
That's beyond heavy. That's like, holy moly.
It's funny. I tell the story all the time, and every time I tell it, I can feel my shoulders kind of going down, because no matter how many times you tell it, it's a crushing story. Thank God he is well, healthy now, but it still is a crushing story.
Yeah. Some stories you just cannot be detached when you tell them.
No.
You're living through it. So, Kristin,
Hey.
I'd like to hear from you at this point.
Yeah, so I was Mary Fran and I do not have a lot of similarities, but one that we do share is that I was one of those rule followers also. And I was on top of that. I was like a planning addict. I planned everything, and I was also, in my family, I was the one that achieved all the goals that I set, right? So everybody expected that I would achieve everything I set out for. And I did. But the biggest thing that I had planned my whole life and dreamt about my whole life was to be a mom. I have a very good role model and a mom and a grandmother and strong, wonderful women in my family. So, I had achieved every single goal, the job, the McMansion, the SUV, the husband, the big wedding and all. And then I finally became a mom. And it was literally my dream come true, until at 4 months old, a doctor said to me, "Your son is blind." And yeah, no amount of planning, dreaming, preparation. I always say, and for those of your listeners that are out there that carried a baby and remember the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, I memorized that thing. I was like staying chapters ahead. I ate the food. I did everything I was supposed to, and nothing can prepare you for what to expect when you hear your son is blind. And I don't know about anybody else out there, but he was the first blind person I ever met. So I had absolutely no frame of reference for blindness other than what everybody probably thought when they heard me say that sentence: devastation, heartbreak, isolation, and sadness. And that's what my life was for 3.5 years, was, a fake smile during the day, crying all night, and literally praying all night for blindness to be taken away. And every single morning I'd walk in Michael's room and know that he was still blind, and I would be crushed all over again. And it was this vicious, wash, rinse, repeat every single day of a sucker punch to my heart and my dreams. And, interestingly enough, I grew up an athlete, and I figured that, as I was pregnant with him and my belly was growing, I was thinking like, my dreams just got bigger and bigger, right? Like, you start out with, I hope I just have a healthy child. And by the time 9 months hits, I'm like shopping for Philadelphia Eagles onesies and Philadelphia Phillies, like, which one is he going to play,
Right.
So my first question to the doctor when I heard that was, is he going to play baseball? Now I'm like, who says that? But that was like, I was just trying to understand what his life was going to be, and nobody could tell me. All they could say was good luck.
Right.
So for 3.5 years, I was a mess. And then it was actually when I was pregnant with my second child, I was very pregnant with him. And I was having a massive tantrum / panic attack / ugliest cry you could ever imagine. Scared to death that my second one would be affected also. And it was my Michael, my 3.5-year-old, that came into my bedroom that morning and changed our entire lives in one sentence. And he said to me, "Mommy, isn't this the best day ever?" And I thought, the best day ever. You have the worst road ahead. How could you possibly think that this is a good day? And I said to him, Michael, why do you think this is the best day ever? He said, Mommy, the sun is up and I'm playing with all my toys and I'm just so happy. And he went back to his day. And in that instant, I realized, I said I had been praying blindness away, and blindness was removed at that moment, but it was my blindness to his perception of his life. For 3.5 years, he figured out everything he wanted to do. People would stop me everywhere and say what a healthy, amazing kid he was, having no idea of his blindness. They just are a happy, amazing kid. He just, to this day, at 21 years old, he finds joy where you can't possibly imagine joy. He gets the most out of every second of every day. And he changed everything for us. And then, you know what, Brad, in that moment, I realized that it was my blindness that was crushing him. I was in his way. The only thing in his way was his mom. Like, that was opposite of the dream I had for my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's profound. The only thing I can relate that to is my first wife, her son was deaf. And when I met her, I decided to learn sign language. And I remember we went out as a family and we're having dinner and we're eating dinner and we're just doing what families do. And we're all signing. And somebody came up to the table and they go, I think what you guys are doing is wonderful. It's just amazing. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about? Because we're in our own world as a family dynamic.
Right.
And the one thing you learn when you have a child that, has some of these limitations that we're talking about is they're in their own world just enjoying it. They don't know any other way.
Exactly.
So like with Ray, my stepson, he doesn't think twice that he's deaf, and we don't think about it either. We're just talking to him. It's like, what do you want to eat tonight? Where do you want to go? What movie do you want to see? They're in their own world and outside it, literally trying to judge it. So hearing this is like, wow, what a wake up call for you. That must have been like, boom, the light went on.
Yeah, it was absolutely extraordinary to think that the only thing standing in his way was his own mom. So when I started looking at it differently, that my role, look, luckily all of my hopes and dreams were crushed for him because I had to just get him what he needed. I always say I get them what they need and follow their lead because it's his life. It's his life to go out there and do, and I have no business putting my dreams on him. And to be honest, Brad, he has lived a life that Hollywood could not write the script of Michael's life. No one could have come up with the stuff that he's done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Incredible. And I will say that, about a month after that, or maybe 3 months after that day, my second son was diagnosed with the same blindness. So I do have both of my boys.
Wow.
Are blind. I eventually had a sighted daughter as well, but I can tell you that it was another sucker punch to the heart to hear that your child is anything other than 1,000% healthy. But this time around, I bounced back pretty quick because I had with Mitchell, my second one, I had in place what I didn't have with Michael, and that's a role model. I had Michael that was proving to me in his little tiny self that things were going to be okay as long as I did my job right. And so we went off on our merry way to all these incredible things that we've done since.
Wow. I'm blown away by both your stories because, it's mom stuff. It's parenting stuff. It's, whoa, what do I do with this now?
Yeah.
It's those curveballs that probably our parents and our parents' parents never had to deal with. It was a lot simpler. So, by the way, how did you two meet? This is like, what's going on? How the universe?
Kristin says God has a sense of humor. It's proof. Kristen's line with that all the time is it proves that God has a sense of humor.
Yeah,
because the two of us could not be more different. I say all the time, we do not work together on paper. We just if you put our little spreadsheets next to one another, nothing would match up. We were actually introduced to each other through another mutual frenemy. I don't know. We're not sure what she is after this pairing, but we were introduced at a mastermind, which was a group of a couple of women who were trying to get together and move businesses forward. And Kristin and I both kind of had similar trajectories in that we were taking our personal stories and we were trying to use them in a way to kind of create platforms to really be of service to other people. And the more that we got to know one another, the more we realized that although our stories were wildly different, that we had both, unbeknownst to even ourselves at the time and each other, because we didn't know each other, we had both kind of followed a similar process in terms of tapping into our inherent resilience, and then figuring out how to figure it out after that. And then once we kind of got through those challenges, and I'm really condensing this story here, Kristin can elaborate, but once we got through those challenges, how to take what we had learned using the skill sets that we had and then go further and turn it into something else. And that was where we came up with the idea of Brilliantly Resilient. We wanted to be the resource that we didn't have. And then we came up with this Reset, Rise, and Reveal Your Brilliance tagline, which was something that we lived, bumbled and stumbled our way through.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Everyone kept saying to us also, as we were getting to know each other and realized we had this process, people constantly said to us, individually and together, how did you, like the world would have given each of us a pass to be sitting on the couch, crying or whatever, or just miserable or not doing the things we were doing and serving the world at the mega way that we were serving the world and having a lot of success and smiling the whole time. I mean, that was what was very unique in the mastermind. It was a great group of women, but we had this joy that people were like, how? You look at our past and it's like, that sucks. Why are you so happy? Sort of trying to channel that and teach people that, yes, you can get hit, but you follow this process and you don't just come through on the other side. We say that you come through brilliant, not broken. You can have a chance now to serve the world in a way that you never could have imagined.
That's hysterical. I mean, people don't understand. How could you be smiling, with all this stuff? But it reminds me of that Gary Larson Far Side cartoon. You remember those panels?
Yeah. I remember that.
They're in hell, and everybody's being whipped. And the devil's standing up on this platform, and there's this guy walking by with a wheelbarrow, and he's just whistling, and he's happy. And the devil leans over to one of his assistants, and he's like, "I don't think we're reaching that guy." and this is what it reminds me of. I mean, you have to hit rock bottom, before you kind of sit there and go, you know what, I'm detached, and it's just powerful what you're talking about. And I want to ask each of you this question. What has changed for you dramatically because of the stories of your children?
I would say the lessons that we learned, and they're very similar and they're very profound, opened doors for us. And a couple of those lessons were, and they kind of fit in with our Reset, Rise, and Reveal Your Brilliance formula. We both learned, first of all, that we had inherent resilience. It's everybody has resilience. Right. We don't name it until we come to think of it as this sort of nebulous thing that you have to find. But we have it. We're born with it. You get up and you fall when you learn to walk, and you do it over and over again. That's resilience. And then we realized that we had a shared value system that was really important in figuring out what was important to us. When you're hit with a sucker punch or a train wreck, as we call them, it takes so many things away of your idea of what your life is going to be and who you are. And as Kristin said, what your kids' lives are going to be. But it also gives you an opportunity to really break down to its most essential, what is important to you. And then when you figure that out, you build on that, and then we learned to control the controllables. And there's so much out of your control. Okay, so what can I do? What can I do? And then, you act on the basis of that. And I guess, Kristin, there's a couple of other ones, the action and don't be married to outcomes thing.
Yeah. And we can dive into that in the process. And so you can see that I was the elementary school teacher, right? Mary Fran's the high school teacher. She keeps us on track. She pulls out all the things we need to know, and then I add the wild color. But you ask, what has happened with us? Here's the thing. We were both these classroom teachers, have these massive sucker punches, and our lives are upside down. Now, in a pandemic, we end up meeting like the guy that created the biggest game on the planet, Pictionary. We end up meeting him and interviewing him about his sucker punches. The biggest entrepreneur on the planet, we're talking to him, right? All these business owners that we're coaching and helping them to get their businesses back. What? Like, right? You know, it's just uncanny. Like they say, turn tragedy into triumph. And we are like, I just can't even believe where both of us started and where we get to be now.
Wait, you have to tell Brad about the book and where and who it landed next to. He's still scratching his head.
So Mary Fran and I both wrote books on our own, and then we came together and wrote the Brilliantly Resilient book during the pandemic. And I always joke, now Mary Fran's an English major and all that. She's got all the words. And then there's me, right? So I always joke that when I did my book, English teachers all over the county of my hometown are needing oxygen because Kristin actually wrote instead of talked her way through something. I was always giving speeches instead of writing. Right. So then Mary Fran and I come together, and our little book that we designed to be a quick read and not anything hard or big lands next to Deepak Chopra on the top 100 bestseller list.
That's incredible.
He's still going, who are these knuckleheads next to me? Right.
Deepak's still scratching his head.
I need to know who these people are. You are cracking me up because, I help authors and thought leaders and all that. I work with, some big names, and I hear this all the time. There's always that hesitation because the one person has to write everything out in perfect language and they have to use the $25 words,
That's me.
Yeah,
that's me. You nailed it.
They think their English professor is standing right over their shoulder and it's like, look at what I did, And then there's you and I, Kristin. It's like, I can tell this great story, but I still use Pennsylvania colloquialisms because I'm from PA as well. And I'll say, where you been at? We have that dangling participle.
There's always a preposition on the end.
Yeah, we have the preposition. And so like people are making fun of me sometimes because my accent comes out when I lose my temper. For the longest time, people are like, I'll go, hey, I'll see you in an hour. They're like, what's an hour? It's an hour. So, and that's the process nowadays. It's so much easier to write a book. One of you.
I've come to calling Kristin and I. Our dynamic is she's Elton John and I'm Bernie Taupin.
You got it. Oh, damn, that is good. That is perfect.
I mean, right? I'm the one. I'm in the background and I'm writing stuff, and I push her on. Well, I don't have to push her on stage. She leaps on stage with her sequins and her feathers, and she goes, "Whoa!" and sends it all.
I like that. It's so true. And if you've ever listened to anything Elton John wrote by himself or with somebody else and tried to sing, you just sit there and go, what the hell is that? And then as soon as he goes back to Bernie Taupin, it's like, oh, that's genius. And so it's the same dynamic. You can't question it. Stop fighting it. Just,
That's
two are
it. We know each other's brilliance and we work it as we work.
That's the key. And we stick to it. We stick to what our brilliance is. And when we're going against the grain, we call each other out on it and say, this is not my talent. This is not my wheelhouse. That's you. That's how it works. It works perfect.
It's like strength finders, where you overlap is where you overlap. That's where your genius is. But I'm laughing at 6 degrees of separation. You talked about Pictionary earlier, correct?
Yeah. Rob Angel.
I worked for a design firm back when they did the children's edition. I did the illustrations on the box.
Oh my goodness! Well, we gotta have a call with everybody. That'll be so fun.
The design firm I worked for at the time had a contract with Selchow Ryder, who did all the original Pictionary boxes.
Wow!
And we're talking late 80s. I mean, when I first moved to New York City. So this is like a small world.
Oh, that's too funny.
Well, actually, you know what? It's a very interesting segue into a different facet of the Brilliantly Resilient process, because we talk about the sucker punches and train wrecks and being resilient from that. But Rob's story, the creator of Pictionary, is a different kind of story where he thought, I'm a waiter. This is my life. I have a very good life and I'm just going to do this. And when the idea came for Pictionary, he kept saying to himself, I'm not a game creator. I'm supposed to be a waiter. And he was being pulled in this other direction that now look how many lives he impacted by saying yes to that calling to create this, right? So sometimes in this process, it's not that you got knocked down. It's that there's this little Mary Fran calls it a tug at you that I think I'm being called in a different direction, and people are afraid to go after that. And he's a perfect example of going after that and what he did with it.
I think if we can say anything right now, and I don't know what it is. Some people are born with this right away, and some of us, we have to get knocked on the back of the head 3 times that we noticed, by the way. With me, it's 9. I noticed the last 3. But lately, especially, I've been just following this inner intuition instead of my brain. And I think people, they think that if we follow all the rules and we do everything right, like Mary Fran said, and I was a good Catholic kid too, that we're going to be successful. And what really happens is we're obedient. And my life has been interesting because I did a lot of things that I thought were the right things. And then halfway there, I went, screw this, I'm doing it my way. Or I said, I don't want to do this. It's all coming from the brain. And some of it's coming from the heart, but this true intuition that you're talking about, this sort of, I can't even put a label on it. It's almost like you are driven by something bigger than you that you just can't put into words. You want to talk about that a little bit? Because it's like a driving force for true change.
Yeah. Well, we talk about resilience being inherent. Your brilliance is inherent too. But in this country, particularly in America, we seem to have this notion that if it doesn't require copious amounts of blood, sweat, and tears, it can't be worth anything. You have to really, really be working for something to be valuable. Right. And what we have found, and all of these people that we've talked to, what they've confirmed is that their brilliance, this thing in you, and everybody has it, that is that thing that's yours, that's your gift. It's so much a part of you that you almost don't notice it. It's so easy for you that you almost don't notice it, but you're constantly being pulled in that direction. And it's this idea that, well, I can't do something that's easy. Like that's what I do for fun. People say this all the time. Oh, that's what I do for fun. Well, you know what? Maybe your fun could really be something that helps somebody else. So it is that the awareness that we have intellectually, you cannot separate from the awareness that you feel in your gut and in your heart. You just can't. And if you follow that, that's where your brilliance lies.
It is part of that Catholic girl still in the back of your head sometimes.
Oh, dear God. I beat her back and lock her in a closet every day. Get in there.
Shut up, Mary Fran. just shut it. Yeah. We're from the era where the nuns used to pick on you. I got paddled more than once, I'll tell you. I was
afraid to get paddled. Like I said, I did everything right, and look where it got me.
Well, I was the bad Catholic kid, because if you look closely, you can barely see my eyebrows, so my eyes always look like I was up to something. That kid's the devil. He's in the Bible somewhere. It's a bad kid. Well, so, Kristin, how about you? I mean, this following a strategic plan just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, we can prepare, but good luck with that.
I know, right? Yeah. And I'm also was raised Catholic, and I'm a Virgo. So I am all about plan. I have like 3 planners, but here's a good credit to those raised in a faithful household like I was. I learned from a very young age that our number one purpose is to serve. Right. And although I went through all the ups and downs and turmoil and turnaround, what I've realized, and this is where Mary Fran and I both are very alike, is our number one thing is to be of service to people. And we actually tell people now in this whole brilliant and resilient process, if you don't know how to take the next step forward, figure out how to serve somebody. And all of it comes into play after that. It all unfolds. So that for me, I sat for years when I figured out how to raise blind kids. And I was kind of going like, it was starting to really work out, and the boys were getting a little older. And I thought, oh, thank God, like things worked out. And then I thought to myself one morning, who am I to sit on this and not at least help some other mom not have that massive sucker punch to her heart? What kind of Christian would I be? What kind of woman would I be if I didn't share that? you know? And when it comes from a place of service, it all unfolds. Look, I also started the patient organization for their blindness. I had no business doing that. How do you go from this rare blindness no one heard of to it's known around the world now? And I actually testified at the FDA to get the first ever cure for blindness approved. That doesn't come from a third grade teacher. That comes from being in a place of service, and then everything unfolds. You take one step at a time. Now, I will say, when you said before you have to get hit 9 times on the head, you know the footprints poem where God's like, there's one set of footprints and he's carrying you.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, on my footprints, it's drag marks because he's dragging me to the purpose, kicking and screaming and threatening his life along the way. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a pretty journey.
That is hysterical. Well, there's that old saying, some people are born great and some people have greatness thrust upon them. And I think you two are both testaments to that. And being, people knock being a Christian, but the reality is that if you're following the whole path of Christ, it is about service and go big or go home. That's the whole story. Can you be challenged to the point of death? Can you be pushed to the limit? And your values stay in your core all the way to the top of that mountain. And no matter how hard you suffer, you get back up and you rise again and keep going and awaken that spiritual dynamic inside of you, that soul part of you that must do this. So I'm going to ask this next question. We'll go back to Kristin. With your children, as you began to work with them and you began to understand, there's a two-way communication that you begin to realize that some of your communication structure is wrong simply because you're from a sighted world, because it isn't going to work with them. Can you share some of that a little bit that you had to change and shift?
Yeah, it's I can give you a very good story that will encapsulate the whole thing. So you have to learn to be descriptive, because it drives my boys crazy when somebody says, oh, it's over there, or, so we got very, very descriptive, even to the point of like the clock, oh, your shoes are over at 2:00 or something like that. We just got very descriptive. And when you learn to do that, it's hard. It was very hard at first that I felt like I was talking all the time. Plus, now great for me that I had 2. People think that was so hard to have 2. It was. However, they had each other, and I could witness how they talked with each other and then be able to adapt my style. But my daughter was born 13 months after my second son. I don't recommend that to anybody. It was a little bit crazy having them 13 months apart. So she was born into this whole thing and born into the inclusion and accessibility and this whole new way of conversing with them. And actually in 3rd grade, she had a teacher at a parent-teacher conference said to me, oh my gosh, Carissa is gifted in science. And I said, oh, she's my kid. Of course, I think she's gifted at everything, right? But I go, in science, I don't know about that because I've lived with her all these years. So she opens one of the kids' notebooks and then opens Carissa's. And the scientific observation was what she couldn't get over. A typical 3rd grader had like 1 paragraph. Carissa had about 5 pages of this observation. And she said, she's so gifted. Look at everything she was able to regurgitate of what she saw. And I said, but since she was born, she has been observing and then communicating to the boys what she's seeing.
Wow.
And that's just how we've been our whole lives with them.
Wow. That is astounding. What a gift. I mean, yeah. And you're going to see your boys are going to do something astounding years later that fits into the blind community. And you're going to go, whoa. And it's all because of these little steps along the way. I don't know if you know this, but back at the turn of the century, when they were creating schools, public school system and things like this, for some reason, and this harkens back to, it looked great on paper. They put blind and deaf students together in the same classrooms. And it's like, wait a minute, they're signing to deaf students and the blind, students can't see what they're signing. So they had to develop their own, touch system. And then they realized we have to separate them. So it's kind of like these dynamics that we get better and better as we try to solve these problems in life and help and escalate and lift up. So this is just such a great
A
testament.
lot of times, though, it's the adults have to shut up and let the kids do the follow their lead, because the kids typically figure out. It's us adults that are like, are you kidding me? But kids are pretty good problem solvers when you give them the space to do it.
It is so true. Very true.
Yeah.
So,
well,
Mary Fran.
I think too, this, one of the things that we talk about with the whole reset and of your resilience is it's about perspective too. And Kristin talks about perspective a lot in her story, but I think when for my situation, my son's perspective and my perspective were so completely, worlds apart and worlds different. And for us, obviously the stakes were a little bit different, but one of the lessons that I learned after trying to figure out what was going on in his head was to let go of the assumptions that what was going on in my head was the same as what was going on in anybody else's head. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of that whole idea of communication, Kristin and I say this all the time, when you let go of the way you think something should be, you make room for what it could be. Mm-hmm. So when you stop assuming that everybody's on the same page as you, or, you work from a certain place and you think everybody's working from that same place, when you stop assuming that, you open the doors for, first of all, a lot of understanding, but also more opportunities for collaboration. Kristin and I are huge on this building the tribe thing. So it's actually to everyone's benefit to cultivate relationships with people who don't see things the same way as you do. Because then suddenly there are different solutions and different ideas and different perspectives being brought into the equation, and more problems get solved because I'm not looking at something the same way you are.
Not at all. I want everybody to reach out to Mary Fran and Kristin. Go to their website, brilliantlyresilient.net. And it's phenomenal. Also pick up their book of the same name, Brilliantly Resilient. If there is one piece of advice that the two of you could give our listeners right now, when you get hit, and pardon me, knocked on your ass, what is the one thing that you can tell us that we should cling to that would help us get back up?
I can honestly say, from not even just having 2 blindness diagnoses, but going through divorce, looking at bankruptcy, selling my home, I can tell you that if you can take a good look at how you are looking at your problem, that for me is the beginning of getting out of it. Because, like I said, with the boys, I wanted certain dreams to come true. And they didn't. And that was a good thing. In my divorce, I wanted a 50th wedding anniversary, and him walking out, I thought, robbed me of that. Now I'm like, thank God I didn't. Who would want to spend 50 years with that wackadoodle? But I was so looking at things as a lost opportunity. And I'm telling you from experience, Brad, now when I go into stuff and I keep getting hit by these sucker punches and I think, where can I grow? What am I going to learn? And what new resources are going to come out of this that's going to make it a brilliant ending to this story as opposed to a broken chapter in it? It's definitely perception for me.
Yeah. I would say for me, the one thing that I have learned, and I preach it continuously, is do not be married to outcomes. You naturally start off with a plan, you start off with a vision, but you have to be willing to work within the circumstances, to let the situation evolve. If it's not going your way and you've tried repeatedly to make it go your way, stop running into the brick wall. Take a look around. And Kristin and I started all this about a year ago. we had this big event planned, and it actually came off. Although, as Kristin said, the morning of, when we had this big live event, we were running around trying to find water and hand sanitizer and stuff to put on the tables. And we were like, how come there's no water? Like, is something happening in the world?
Right.
So the very next week after the event that we had on March 14th, we were March the 7th, the whole world shut down. And our plan for going out and bringing this Brilliantly Resilient program and concept to people live, it just crashed and burned. But by not being married to that outcome and not sitting there and going, oh, this is never going to work and we can't do anything, by just going, all right, well, that didn't work. So now what? We decided to start this show. We did, how many did we do in a row?
100 days in a row live.
100 days in a row live. 100 days where we interviewed people who had experienced challenges and sucker punches.
Wow.
It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that's happened since then with the programs and the podcast and the book and all because we were like, okay, that didn't work. We're not going to stay married to that. We're going to take a look at the situation as it's evolved and see where we can go now. So don't be married to outcomes. That would be my takeaway.
Wow. Everybody, you got to hear these two together. They're very funny. Look for the Brilliantly Resilient Facebook group. And we're going to leave the links in the show notes so everybody can go to these. And also they're on Apple Podcasts as well as YouTube. And we'll give you those links. And this is powerful because honestly, I think people are tired of the same story. The reason I started Awaken Nation is I was on 100, either as a guest or a host, podcasts, and it was the same business story. It's like, do you know how amazing I am? I made $1 million last year. You're so awesome. I'm so awesome, and you're so awesome, obviously. And I was just like, oh my God. And then I was on I had Brian Smith on when I was on Journeys to Success, and he started Uggs. And Brian talked about getting fired from the company he owned and had to work his way back in. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that was going on. And Brian's Australian. So when I had him back on Awaken Nation, the whole premise was, let's talk about when you lost everything. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm like, I would ask him a question. He's like, Brad, that's a great question, mate. You know, and he would just go into these great answers. And I was just like, that's the conversation. And I'm betting that's why you did this. It's the conversation and the outcome from change.
Yeah.
Is the reason you do it. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Brad, all these conversations we've had, we were supposed to be impacting our followers and our tribe. They were the role models we needed to get through the pandemic. I learned from them every single day. I mean, I'm in a situation of custody battles and financial stuff and all that. And there were days where I'm like, oh my God, Mary Fran, I don't think I can get on this today because I think my hair is going to fall out again. And lo and behold, we would talk to somebody about how they got knocked out. You know, and these are people with multi-million-dollar businesses or these mega lives. And when you hear that they also had that moment that is universal, I suck, my life sucks, I can't do this, how do I get back up? It's a universal thing. And then we were able to do it too.
Yeah. And just getting to know people's humanity. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's, you know, we tend to categorize things because social media has us all doing that. You put yourself into these certain little slots, but you know, at the end of the day, every single person that we spoke to had a human story. Right. And that was the great connector, you know, and they talked about how they felt during mm-hmm. that. And all these people who were so amazing confessed to feeling like crap, confessed to feeling lost, confessed to feeling, you know, confused and scared and all that stuff that we all feel. Right. So it was like this leveled the playing field for so many people. And those are the stories that I think inspire us most. The ones that you hear these amazing people who go, yeah, my life sucked at that point. Like, you're like, yay for sucking. It was great. Everybody feels the same thing. So conversations are awesome.
You know, Brad, to your point of it's the same old business story. Yeah. Most of our guests come on thinking it's that they're promoting a book or they've got something going on, you know, and you see, if you watch them on YouTube, the video ones, you can see the moment in a lot of the episodes where they're like, they start diving into their pit story and their sucker punch. And there's this moment of flipping, like, and then how many times, Mary Fran, has someone at the end, after we stop recording, they go, I had no idea I was going to get into that story. Like, you know, it's like therapy for them also. Yeah. And it goes in this beautiful direction of like Mary Fran said, the humanity of it. But and that's just because we were looking to serve this community with tools to get out of that pandemic pit that we were all in.
How to Be Brilliantly Resilient After Life's Sucker Punches with Mary Fran Bontempo and Kristin Smedley. Reach out to them. Their website is brilliantlyresilient.net. Listen to them on their podcast. They're funny together. Go to the Facebook group as well as Apple Podcasts and their YouTube channel. Now, I never let my guests get away unless I ask them a lightning round of 3 questions. We have about 10 more minutes here.
Oh boy.
And so I'm going to ask you this question. What should we know about you that people don't know about you?
I am a professional singer.
Wow. So was my mom. That is amazing.
Many years with very highly skilled opera singers and teachers and things like that. And I really don't do it much anymore because I have had some throat issues, but I will qualify it by saying most of my work was church singing, but I did many
wow
weddings and that was a thing for me for a very long time.
So it's hard for you to watch American Idol.
Oh, geez, I never watch those shows. I just can't even. And it's terrible because like if my kids and I were forever anywhere together and somebody's singing and I hear them go off pitch, like I can't help but go like this.
Yeah.
And the kids are always nudging me like, stop it.
I know. I'm the same way. My mom was a professional singer. I can't do it. Kristin, how about you?
I'm not a professional singer, but I am a karaoke queen. No, I'm just kidding. No. What do people not know about
dragon boat things and your soccer and oh my god.
Well, I will say, I'll tell you this. So I am not a singer, right? And I told you that I planned my entire life out and I knew from the time I was 5 that I was going to be a teacher. However, Brad, there was this window during high school where I had a mega goal to do a duet with LL Cool J. I was going to be a rap star with LL Cool J. And my parents were like, oh, hell no. You're going teacher route.
Well, now you're Kristin OG. Kristin OG in the house.
Kristin
OG. Original gangster.
I would do his whole album. Yep.
Got the gestures down. Got to wear the Kango hat. You remember the one he used to wear?
You know.
I'm not that old. Yeah, I ain't going out like that. Not like a punk.
If LL is in your audience, come on, buddy.
ladies love Cool James. That's what that means.
Cool J.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Dude, I was planning our world tour. You never know. It could still happen.
Oh,
gentlemen, please welcome the medley from Smedley. Please welcome.
No. I'm going to be Special K.
Special K. There you go. Are we about the whitest rappers ever? That's funny. I'm so angry. There's a line here.
Ain't nobody paying for that show. Sorry.
There you go. Ain't nobody want to see that. So my second question is, what's your favorite memory?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's really a tough question.
Well, I have one. I have one that I can tell you. I actually just revealed this to Mary Fran recently because it just came to my mind recently that I believe my motivational speaking career began in 2nd grade because I was on a soccer team. I was one of those. I was the only girl in the entire league. It was all boys, right? And our soccer team. Now, I didn't have nothing growing up, so I certainly wasn't going to the 7-Eleven and getting a Slurpee. Like that was just not happening. Right. However, my soccer team was sponsored by a 7-Eleven. And if we won, we got free Slurpees. A motivational speaker was born. I would be running alongside my teammates, cheering and screaming to win the game. So I at least was guaranteed 10 Slurpees in my lifetime.
See what sugar does to you. It's a motivator.
All right. So I'm going to maybe take this in a slightly different direction than Slurpees. I think my favorite memory is probably the day that my first grandchild, my granddaughter, was born because she was my son who had struggled with heroin addiction and alcoholism and all of that and substance abuse for years. She was my son's first child with his wife. And that was the day that I knew he was going to be okay.
Aw.
Because that was the day that he had somebody beside him. So I could see it in his face. That was the day he had somebody else besides him to do it right for.
Yeah. He's a cool guy.
It's not as good as a Slurpee story, but that's all I got.
Wait, I have to add
pretty good.
He's so cool. David is so cool. And I love the fact that he says, she has 3 kids. Mary Fran has 3 kids. And David always says, I'm the only kid that she wrote a book about.
I keep telling him that's not brag worthy, but he's not listening.
I think it's hilarious.
He wrote, that's all about me.
Yeah.
That right there. That
Look how amazing I am.
Those
dude,
5 chapters.
Don't brag about that.
Those are about me. Yeah. So that's funny. Good for you. And my last question, when you leave this earth, what do you want to be known for? Being of service.
I think that's it. I mean, across the board, being of service. I want people to say, you know, she helped people wherever she could. That's it. That's enough. That's enough.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would say that I want people, especially my kids, to say that I did everything in my power and with all of my brilliance to give them what they needed to live their purpose. All 3 of them.
Wow. Thank you so much for being on Awakened Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, reach out to Mary Fran Bontempo and Kristin Smedley. They are extraordinary. I just love your stories. And look up, just do a Google search, Brilliantly Resilient. They have a book out. The book's out now, am I correct?
Yep. Yes, it is on Amazon.
Amazon.
You can find it on Amazon. Their website, brilliantlyresilient.net. And let me tell you, it's been an honor to have you on the show today. I have to thank Lisa Gage for this.
Yeah, we'll do the same. Thanks, Brad. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. You may be the only other 2 guests I've ever had on that knows what Scrapple is.
Oh,
we're from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania in the house.
Be a documentary on that someday.
Yeah, they should. Have you read anything about cholesterol? When you're in Pennsylvania? Anyways,
not health food.
There you go. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, tune in next week for another extraordinary guest here on Awakened Nation. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.